Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host, as always, Daniel Levy, your co-host, Shaq. We're going to be talking UFC 271, Israel Adesanya versus Robert Whittaker 2. And Shaq, it's going down this Saturday night at the Toyota Center in Houston, Texas. Finally on neutral soil, man, because, the first time was down under. There was so much pressure, so much pride. New Zealand versus Australia. Now, they don't have to worry about that as much. Look, there's bragging rights. Don't get me wrong, Shaq, but I'm just saying, at least now, neutral territory. It's a brand new fight. Dude, I cannot wait. These are the two best middleweights on planet Earth fighting for a world championship.
Yeah, 100%. And you got one of the biggest stars in the UFC as well, Israel Adesanya. He's right up there with, after McGregor, I think he's got to be, right in line after that in terms of, big hype stars. And, the UFC's rewarding him for that. He's getting that big deal. And now he's got to be active to make this deal look good. And, Robert Whittaker, he bounced back from the title defeat and got 3 wins in a row over, 3 good guys. And now he's earned his way back to a title shot. So Robert Whittaker, one of the best middleweights ever. Israel Adesanya might be on his way to being the best middleweight ever. And I'm excited to see what happens Saturday night, because the rematches, I always feel like there's a lot of pressure on the guy that won the first time, but he's already done well in rematches before. He fought Marvin just his last fight. So we'll see what happens.
Out of curiosity, if you had to rank the top 4 middleweights of all time on a Mount Rushmore, look, Anderson Silva, Israel Adesanya,
Rich Franklin,
Robert Whittaker. Who's the 4th?
Rich Franklin.
You think Rich Franklin?
Yeah.
He was a badass champ in his time.
Yeah.
Don't forget about my boy Richie Rich.
Yeah,
but
when I was coming up, man, Rich Franklin was that guy.
Yeah. But could you look at other promotions and talk about a Dan Henderson going over there in Pride doing his thing? And he did beat Rich when they fought.
Well, yeah, but he never had a belt in UFC. But yeah, you could say that. But he did when they fought. He did win. So
now this is a little something. Now, Dan Henderson did win a UFC tournament, but yeah, back when Vitor won the heavyweight tournament. These are all right. We'll do the MMA history another time, but let's break down this card, man. So in the co-main event, we got Derrick Lewis taking on Tai Tuivasa, and you know the deal here. These two are gonna stand and bang until one man falls. You got the UFC KO King, not the heavyweight KO King, the UFC heavyweight KO, the UFC KO King and Derrick Lewis, and then Tai Tuivasa. This guy's always destructive. This guy's always exciting. This guy's always explosive, always looking for that big KO. And I don't think these guys are going to show each other too much respect. I do think that, sometimes when you got guys with that kind of firepower, they might stare at each other. I don't think that's going to be the case here. I do think someone's hitting the deck, Shaq.
Yeah, Derrick Lewis, like you said, UFC KO King, some of the greatest comeback KO victories in the UFC history, some of the best KO victories in the UFC history. The last one was one of the most brutal things I've ever seen in a while. And then against Chris Daukaus, and then the let's not forget the Curtis Blades knockout. Curtis Blades was literally snoring on the canvas. So, Derrick Lewis can dish out a lot of damage. He can take some as well. And Tuivasa, what a nice little rebound story this guy's had. Because, not too long ago, he dropped 3 in a row. Now, I know he fought a couple cans in there like Hunsucker and Struve and Greg Hardy and things like that. But hey, he built his confidence back up. A year ago he said he was going to quit drinking and he was going to change his life around, and it put him on a 3-fight win streak. So props to him.
Yeah, and then the featured bout in the middleweight division might be a title eliminator between Jared Cannonier and Derek Brunson. This whole blonde Brunson thing, people are going with it, man, and he's been winning some fights, and he actually just recently announced he's only got 2 fights left. And then Jared Cannonier, he's always wanted this title shot. He thinks that he's a good stylistic matchup for Izzy. So, the winner of this fight puts himself in a prime position to potentially challenge the winner of Izzy and Rob.
Yeah, Brunson, he's been around the block for a while. It's good to see, he can, rejuvenate himself and reinvent himself at this age, this stage in his career. Definitely with some of the KO losses that he's had, props to him for getting back into this spot. Nice wins over Till and Golden Boy Shabazian and who else did he beat?
Ian Heinisch,
Ian Heinisch,
Elias Theodorou.
Yeah. But Jared Cannonier is one of the most violent middleweights, and ever since he dropped from 205, I mean, I think that was the best decision he ever made. Has to stay very disciplined and look at the type of damage he dishes out, man. Those calf kicks. I know you remember what he did to Jack down there in where was it, Denmark or somewhere. I mean, it had him on the canvas one round. So I like Jared Cannonier. Always been a fan, and I'm excited to see him fight.
Well, Shaq, let's break down this whole card start to finish. Everybody do us a huge favor and smash that like button. And if you're not subscribed to Half the Battle, what the fuck are you waiting for? Do us a favor, hit that subscribe button, smash the like button. Let's get down to business, my man. Because first up, in the welterweight division, we got a matchup between Jeremiah Wells, he's 9-2, taking on Mike Blood Diamond Matitha, who is 3-0. And currently, they got Jeremiah Wells minus 235. The comeback on Mike Blood Diamond Matitha is plus 195. So it's an interesting fight because, like, obviously MMA experience wise, you got to go with Jeremiah Wells. He also has a black belt in jiu-jitsu. And I mean, you saw what he did to Worley Alves. He turned up on Worley Alves. He ran through Worley Alves. So my thing with Jeremiah Wells is that I see a different guy every time. Like there was this one fight on his regional scene where he went 5 rounds with this Brazilian and he literally stared at him for 5 straight rounds. And he comes out there like that here. I don't know, because this kid Blood Diamond, look, he's not experienced for MMA at all. He's only 3-0. And I feel like if you watch some of his fights, it's like almost like he's not even like trying that hard. It's almost like he's just out there, throwing these crescent kicks and just chilling out against the fence and not taking too many unnecessary risks. I think he's still transitioning from kickboxing to MMA. So he's in the midst of that process, but he also hasn't fought in 2 years. So we don't know if he's going to come out here looking a lot better. I mean, 2 years is a long time to work on your skills. So with Jeremiah Wells, like I mentioned, he does have a black belt in jiu-jitsu. And hey, do me one favor. My dog looks like he's out here about to gag on my floor. So why don't you talk about this fight for a sec and let me handle this real quick. All right.
All right. Yeah, I mean, Jeremiah Wells had a very impressive debut that first fight against Worley Alves as a big underdog. He comes from a good promotion in Cage Fury. I mean, that promotion is consistently putting in guys in the UFC and guys that are having success. Now, Blood Diamond, like you said, he's a kickboxer transitioning to MMA. And it's hard to say because I haven't really seen it, to be honest. I've been hearing a lot of things that, I mean, he's in way over his head. He doesn't really know MMA, and that's the case for a lot of guys. I mean, even guys like Giga Chikadze, some kickboxers like that, they've struggled against inferior opponents because they're just not experienced in MMA. Look, it's been 2 years since this guy has been in the cage, and look, Jeremiah Wells stand up. I guess that would be Mike Matitha's path to victory to try to knock him out. And he comes from a good gym. He's, city kickboxing behind him, a lot of good strikers in there. It's just that I feel like Jeremiah, at this stage in his career, he's not one of these typical rookies. He's very, how old is he? Like 34 years old. He's, like I said, he's coming from that promotion. He's had 5-round fights before. I don't think this is going to be a task for him that he possibly gets snuck up on. I think that he's going to come out here with a good game plan, use your Daniel Gracie, BJJ, and expose this guy. If you get on top of him, I see Jeremiah having his way with him. He just can't play around on the feet too much, but at the same time, his last fight on the feet, I mean, he looked quite good to me. At least an improvement from his regional scene fights by a lot. And I mean, when you look at the matchups they're putting this guy in, they tried to match him up with Miguel Baeza for his first fight. Maybe they know something I don't know. I'm going Jeremiah Wells. I just think he's the more complete fighter. But yeah, he's gotta be careful for the KO shot. But I think that's the only chance Mike Matitha has.
Yeah, and again, in that last Mike Matitha fight, his MMA one in like 2020, it just seemed like it was lackadaisical. Like he had so much more to give, but he's got a big personality. He wants to be cocky and do all these things. We don't know what the ground game is looking like.
It kind of reminded me of Galore Bufando. I don't know if you remember.
Oh yeah,
but like just a kind of a gimmick, but like very dangerous.
Yeah, for sure. It's just Jeremiah Wells. running in recklessly, that's what I'd be most worried about, and getting countered by, a guy that does have a kickboxing background. But and also I want to clear something up. I hear people talking about how, Jeremiah Wells trains with Sean Brady and this and that. Look, they live in the same state and they train around the same area, but they do not train together. If you actually listen to them talk, Sean Brady talks about how he's got his own people and Jeremiah Wells got his own people. So the whole narrative that they're training partners is total bullshit. They got their own people. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But I will also go with Jeremiah Wells based off experience. So let's see what happens. Now, next up in the bantamweight division, we got a matchup between Douglas Silva de Andrade. He's 27-4. That's a hell of a record, Shaq. And he's taking on Sergey Morozov, who is 17-4. So 10 more wins for Douglas Silva de Andrade. Look, Sergey Morozov, man, I mean, the dude, look, I know he's from Kazakhstan, but he's got that Russian coast type style. And he's fought some very tough competition outside the UFC. I mean, he's been in there with Movsar Evloev, made his UFC debut against Umar Nurmagomedov. And Umar might only be 1-0 in the UFC, but he's a lot better than that record indicates. And I think he's going to be a problem for a lot of people. So, I mean, and Douglas Silva de Andrade, we talk about how Morozov was in there with like Evloev. Silva de Andrade was in there with Peter Yan, Marlon Vera, even got the win over Marlon Vera, Rob Font, Tukugov in his debut. Like, this dude's been in there with the killer's row. And, he kind of just reminds me of a better version of Sergey Morozov's last opponent, Khalid Taha, who I have a lot of respect for, a hard hitter, but Silva de Andrade, a lot more experience, a lot more seasoned. I mean, you got to be a no slouch to come out here and beat Silva de Andrade. Do you think that Russian coast type style can work on him? It did work on him in his debut against Tukugov. Now, that was at 145. Can it work here again at 35 against Morozov?
Yeah, it's a good fight. Douglas de Silva is very experienced. A good striker, good everywhere. I think this is a bad matchup for him though against Morozov. I think Morozov showed good improvements from fight 1 to 2. The debuts sometimes they don't go according to plan, especially when you're fighting a Khabib cousin. So I think that his next fight against Taha, I mean, Taha coming off the steroids possibly, but still, I mean, some of the shots he was throwing very hard. But what I saw big improvements in the boxing from fight 1 to 2, and I think that the big thing that what's going to win him this fight is just the clinch and the pressure. I think that Douglas de Silva, although he's a good fighter, he likes to rest. If he can get moments to rest, he'll take them, and he might get away with that against guys like the last guy he just knocked out, and Henan Barao, and what's it good, Henry Briones, and some of these guys like that, where he'll floor them and knock them out. But we've got evidence of history of what happens when he fights the Kazakh / Russian style fighter. I mean, he's gotten severely beaten. I mean, I know I'm not saying Morozov's no Peter Yan, but he has spent time training with Peter Yan, and Tukugov was able to beat him by decision as well. I see holes in the clinch in De Silva's game. I think Morozov basically. I don't like to disrespect De Silva because I'm a big fan, but I almost think he's got a free decision here, a free decision win here if he can just not get knocked out. I think that he's going to work harder. I think his work rate's going to be harder. He's going to be pushing the pace in the clinch, holding on to his waist, trying to kill that clock, stay ahead on the cards, and I think he will, man. I think he will defeat Douglas de Silva by decision.
Yeah, I can definitely see it, man. And I'm also going to go with Sergey Morozov via, a slight Russian coast type decision. I mean, look, this De Silva is not a walkthrough. I mean, this guy is a bruiser. I mean, when you have a 27-4 record and the only guys that he's lost to are the Peter Yans, the Rob Fonts, you see what I'm saying? Even that kid, Leron Murphy's undefeated. So I like what I see from him. It's just, I don't think that there's been much evolution in his game, whereas that last Sergey Morozov performance was the best he's ever looked. So let's go with this Kazakhstani coast, Sergey Morozov, to get it done. Now, next up in the middleweight division, we got a matchup between Jacob Malkoun, who's 5-1, taking on AJ Dobson, who's 6-0. So Jacob Malkoun, he goes from fighting random nobodies in Australia to all of a sudden, hey, here's Phil Hawes. And yeah, I know people are low on Phil Hawes, but Phil Hawes is the complete package minus his chin. I mean, Phil Hawes is a hell of a fighter. He beat Imavov. Like, I'm not low on Phil Haas. If Phil Haas just had a chin, he'd be a world champion. But after that fight, you want to see what someone's confidence is like. You want to see how they rebound. Well, let's put him in there with another scary knockout artist. He goes in there against Razak Al Hassan. And I mean, the dude's out there looking like the Australian Khabib. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I think he attempted 19 takedowns. Let me pull up the UFC stats so I can tell you the amount of takedowns he went for, because he came out here with the right game plan. And if he comes out here with the same game plan, I think he's got a chance to win. This guy, AJ Dobson, is a bit of a question mark. Look, what is not a question mark is that the guy is an absolute freak athlete, hits like a truck, is explosive, is dynamic, and has a lot of first-round finishes. So, I mean, you gotta be mindful of that. And I got my number up. Jacob Malkoun attempted 24 takedowns on Razak Al Hassan. If he attempts 24 takedowns here on AJ Dobson, I think he's got a chance to win. And I want to bring something up that's irrelevant, but I just want to let y'all know about a little something. And you listen, I don't talk about amateurs just like I don't talk about practice, but you know that AJ Dobson got finished by John Gunther on amateurs, right? And now, granted, this was 2014, so I know for a fact that he's gotten a lot better since 2014. But it's always a red flag when they get finished by a bum like that. No disrespect, but that's just how I feel about that. So really, I mean, is AJ Dobson going to come out here, continue that first round finish streak, knock Jacob Malkoun out, or is Jacob going to come out here, Australian Khabib him, attempt 24 takedowns, grind him down, and win that gritty decision?
It's a good fight because AJ Dobson, it was kind of for me at least, it was kind of a tale of two swords with him. I like the physicality, the power. I mean, he definitely is scary in that department. It's just he feels like a stunt waiting to happen to me. Like he just seems super over aggressive, leaving himself open for counters. He'll get away with that against certain guys, but against certain guys you won't. Now, Jacob Malkoun, I mean, this third fight for him shouldn't be nothing new. I mean, he's already fought two big black scary guys. Fucking here's the number third one. I think this guy is lesser than the other two. So honestly, I think this could possibly be a good position for him. It's just this guy AJ Dobson is very aggressive, and in the early goings, he's got to be careful. He can't let another Phil Hall situation happen. But I personally think, you're 4-0, you're in Abu Dhabi, you're big bros fighting the main event on the card, Rob Whittaker, and I think that was just too much for him, man. And he bounced back. I mean, I know Razak kind of had, it was at 185, I believe, and Razak kind of wasn't in the best state at the time, but I think it was a much better performance. And I think the momentum he has right now he's got to be feeling real confident. I see a lot of these guys, man, like for example, what's my guy's name? Malcolm X. Like, his first two fights, he gives people the impression that he's a quitter or he, just doesn't belong or something like that. But I mean, after a while, it takes time. He gets more comfortable in there, and now he's won his last two fights. So I think that Jacob Malkoun, kind of just was overwhelmed that first fight. I think that if he can, weather that early storm of AJ Dobson, I think AJ is a recipe to gas himself out. I think that if he can't get the early knockout, that he will fatigue in the late rounds. And I'll take Jacob Malkoun for an upset win. Or is it a pick'em or slight AJ?
Yeah, minus 110 apiece.
I think I'll take Jacob Malkoun for an upset win. But look, it could go either way. I just think that the UFC debut mixed in with the way this kid fights AJ Dobson, I think he's going to overexert himself, and I think that he's going to fatigue in the late round. So I'm going with Jacob.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we don't know what AJ Dobson's wrestling defense is like. And to your point, I mean, he was going balls to the wall to the point, in those fights where it's like, if these fights got extended even one bit,
they just have to get extended. Like, he's strong and powerful. The first round's gonna be tough, but he's an overexerter.
Yeah, I know in 2014 he couldn't stuff takedowns, but that's like close to a fucking decade ago.
He does have Mark Coleman in his
and Matt Brown.
Yeah, and Matt Brown. So I saw that on Contender Series.
Like I'm sure he's been patching it up. It's just experience counts for a lot. So I'm leaning Malkoun because I've seen him go out there not just, defeat a scary knockout artist, but also when you attempt 24 takedowns, like those are the kind of things I take note of. Those are like Bilal Muhammad type numbers. And we're going to talk about it with a Ronnie Lawrence. We're going to talk about it even with a Nick Maximov, that this is a style you guys got to look out for, where these kids that, you stuff their first 4 takedowns, but they're not tired at all. And then they keep trying to take you down over and over. That might actually be a style that's going to give a lot of people a lot of problems. So I look forward to, talking about guys like that. And let's see if Jacob Malkoun can implement that game plan. So he will be my pick. But yeah, obviously I'm hesitant about the early going. This kid, AJ Dobson, he's a freak athlete that hits like a truck, and we've seen Malkoun knocked out before, but give me that Malkoun grind here. Now, next up in the 205-pound division, we got a matchup between Carlos Ulberg. It says he's 3-1, but he's actually 5-1, and he's taking on Fabio the Water Buffalo Cherant, who is 7-3. And currently, they got it Carlos Ulberg minus 260. The comeback on Fabio Cherant is plus 220. Now, I bet on Ulberg, but I moved in at minus 200, so the line's moved 60 cents. So I got the best of the line. And yeah, I understand that a lot of people are disappointed because they bet him last time against Kennedy and what happened. But actually, we were out here saying Kennedy should be, you should pick Kennedy in that fight. My boy Shaq bet on Kennedy. But like Fabio Cherant, look, I respect anyone that steps in there. And actually, if you watch his Contender Series fight, like I know the final result was a flying knee KO. Cherant doesn't really do much, but when he does do things, it's explosive and it's dangerous. Like he threw this one high kick on Contender Series where I'm like, God damn it, that shit lands clean. Dudes are gonna get decapitated. Like he threw one little combo at William Knight where I'm like, man, if he just did more of that, like maybe he could have some success. But then there's like 2 minutes of inactivity, and his style actually on the regional scene, he's like a guillotine guy, and I've seen him so many times go for the guillotine and just get slammed right in the bottom side control. In the UFC, I saw that against Alonzo Menafield, and I saw that in the regional scene. So I just don't really see a guy that's quite ready to be at this level yet. And I understand Ulberg is also green, but Ulberg's got a very high level, a very high kickboxing acumen, and he's training with all the right people, and he's got a better mindset. I think he just went out there. I mean, when you're a 205er and you throw 200 strikes like in the first round, like those are lessons you learn from. You pace yourself the next time. You pick your shots a little better. I think he hurt Kennedy early and got excited, man. And against one fundamental difference here between Fabio and Kennedy is Kennedy can take everything but the kitchen sink. Like I understand Kennedy's fight against Dawoon Jung, he got finished right away, but that might have been a result of the accumulation of all the shots that Carlos Ulberg landed on him, combined with the fact that this kid Dawoon Jung, I mean, he hits like a fucking truck too. So, but here with Fabio Cherant, all due respect to anyone that steps in there, I just don't think he's at this level yet, man. I think he needs more seasoning on the regional scene. And even those regional scene fights, they weren't the dominations I wanted. Like these guys that are, 38 years old, too small for the weight class, are like, putting up tough fights with him, man. And so, yeah, Fabio's only chance here, he's not going to come out here throwing volume. He's not going to come out here establishing his jab and picking apart Ulberg or landing multiple takedowns. The only way Fabio wins this fight is by landing a one-hitter quitter bomb and knocking Ulberg out, and I just don't see that happening. So I think Ulberg is going to light this man up, get a highlight reel knockout, possibly a second straight 50K bonus in a row, and cash my minus 200 here.
Yeah, it's a good fight. Look, Ulberg, definitely a little higher on him. Cherant, I've never been. I've kind of elaborated back on his fight with Alexa Kamor.
You told me from day one.
I was like, bruh, like this kid is lost. He doesn't really know. He just looks very uncomfortable in there. He looks very tense. I think it's more of a mental issue than a skill thing. Ulberg, on the other hand, look, going into his Contender Series fight, I was a little skeptical, but he passed that one, knocked out Bruno, who's got a good record, so he's already done more, in my opinion. And then you consider the fight of the night with Kennedy. I was actually on Kennedy. The line was just way too wide, but Kennedy is a 6'5" guy, 80-inch reach plus.
What's Kennedy's nickname?
African
Savage.
Yeah,
something that. Yeah.
But I think that Kennedy's just boxing style, is very volume based. it's not really a one punch knockout. It's just accumulation. He did the same thing to Danilo Marquez. He's a volume puncher. Now Cherant, man, he is strong, he is powerful, he is fast. He athletically speaking, it's I mean, if you look at them, you probably think he's gonna run Carlos Ulberg over. But kind of like similar to like Jamie Pickett. You look at these guys and you're like, whoa, I mean, this guy's got to be top 15 or something, and then like mentally it just doesn't coincide. So look, I think the line now is getting in that playing with fire range for Ulberg, just because he has 4 fights and or 6 fights, whatever. You kind of don't want to lay too big chalk on those guys unless you're confident he's going to get that first round finish. But at the same time, this guy has been first round finished 2 times. Alonzo Minifield, in my opinion, is I don't want to say it can, but borderline. I mean, he couldn't beat Devin Clark, and I mean, these guys come out here and are submitting you and it's just embarrassing. And then you go to the William Knight fight. William Knight's a five. How tall is William Knight?
5'9".
5'9". And I mean, he's landing counter shots on you because you're so overextended and uncomfortable. I mean, look, I heard he, was training at Sanford, but Sanford can't fight for you. Barriall was training at Sanford too. So
John Jones and Henry Cejudo can't fight for you either. You went to Fight Ready for like a week, and
I know he's trying to go to all these camps to gain confidence, but I just don't see it working out. I'm gonna take Ulberg too, probably. Yeah, KO, TKO. If it goes 3 rounds. Ulberg, I just think higher of him. I mean, the Kennedy fight. I mean, I kind of had a feeling he was in trouble there just because he hadn't done anything up until that point. But now he got that 50K. He knows what it is to see that darkness. I don't think it will deter this guy. Training at the camp that he does. He'll be back.
I mean, listen, all I gotta say is that if Fabio Cherant can eat 200 plus strikes from Ulberg like Kennedy did, then God bless him. That's all I gotta say. But I'm happy I beat the line by 60 cents, and it's probably gonna be more by the time the fight starts. So yeah, let's ride Ulberg. Now, next up in the 155-pound division, we got a matchup between Alexander Hernandez. He's 13-4. He's taking on Renato Moicano Carnero, who is 15-4. And currently, they got Renato Moicano -160. The comeback on Alexander Hernandez is +140. So Hernandez has been chirping against Shaq. You know what happens when Alex starts to run his mouth. And by the way, y'all got to check out Cub Swanson's tweet the other day. Kind of put him in his place a little bit. But Alex is complaining that he's on the prelims. And listen, I stand by what I said. I still think that the Beneil Dariush fight is one of the biggest flukes in the history of the sport. I truly believe they run it back. And I don't see Alex ever beating Benny ever again.
Well, they're not running it back. So.
Yeah, they won't ever run it back because one guy's top 3 and one guy will never hit the ranking. So, but that being said, man, Renato Moicano moving up to 155 pounds. He's 2-1 in the weight class. The only loss to Fiziev, but he handled Hadzovic and Jai Herbert exactly how you're supposed to. So, I mean, here's the thing with Moicano. We always know the deal. In that first round, Moicano always gets cracked with something big. But if he can survive, man, I mean, I expect him to take over, but what are the chances of this Alexander Hernandez first round knockout? And real quick, this isn't Texas. Last time this dude fought in Texas, he won the most bullshit decision I've seen since 30-26 Bosch when he beat Trinaldo. Like they called it 30-27. So when we heard the 30-27s, we're like, oh yeah, we won. Congrats, Trinaldo. And then they're like, Alexander Hernandez. Like I was like, oh my God. So that being said, man, how you see this one? How you see this one going down? Can Moicano avoid getting clipped early?
I mean, I think everyone knows how I feel about Alexander Hernandez, and that really hasn't changed. So, I mean, he's a good fighter, but he's not as good as he thinks. He never has been. I think basically how I'm gonna break this fight down is don't ever compare Alexander Hernandez to Jose Aldo, to Korean Zombie, to Rafael Fiziev. And that's just
or Ortega.
If you're thinking he's that level of striker, you're deeply mistaken. I mean, his last 2 KOs over Toucans, some guy I never heard of, and Gritzmacher. And then you look at it, since the Beneil fight, man. I mean, after that, he fought Mercier lackluster. The Trinaldo win, did he even win? He got outboxed, out kickboxed. If he's such a good striker, how come a jiu-jitsu guy named Thiago Moises is in the pocket trading with him and talking to him and telling him to come on? Moicano in this matchup is definitely the more skilled fighter, better hands in my opinion, better overall game with the jiu-jitsu and the grappling. Moicano's weaknesses, he'll just get sparked a couple times. Now, look, I think that Moicano under the radar. When I watched Jai Herbert strike in that footwork and that movement, I was like, man, I feel like Jai Herbert's a better striker than Alexander Hernandez. I feel like Alexander Hernandez has kind of honestly fallen back to more of a point fighter, staying on the outside, trying to tip and run. Of course, he can knock out Mike Breeden and these guys like that. But anytime he's fought that real comp, he can't get that knockout. Dariush, that was like his third opponent. But anyways, man, I'm going Renato Moicano here. I think he's the better overall fighter. I think that we're talking about a guy whose skills were at one point, whether what division it was or not, was top 5 at one point. And I think that now he's fighting with a lot more carefree. I think he's going to. I thought he looked great against Fiziev, to be honest, man. Like, the exchanges they were having, I mean, he wobbled Fiziev once. I mean, like, stunned him a couple times. Like, it's just Fiziev. We're talking about like a real Kazakh, not even Kazakh, but you know what I'm talking about. Like this Kurzik, but like a real striker, man. Like, where the timing is scary. And I mean, you just saw what he did to Brad Riddell. That was a high level chess match right there. And Brad Riddell makes one little mistake and he's seeing stars, like, just like that, how things can change with that guy. And he showed me he can go 3 rounds. I don't see Alexander Hernandez, honestly, truthfully, anywhere near that anymore. I think he's a middle of the pack guy at 155 now. Like I said, jiu-jitsu guys are in the pocket trading with him and outboxing him and talking to him. I got Moicano here. I think he's hungry. I think he's going to come out here and finish him submission.
I mean, listen, Renato, just don't go down in the first couple minutes and you win this fight. I know that sounds black and white, but I actually do think it's that simple. Moicano is more skilled across the board. Just got to worry about that chin from time to time. And Hernandez is a sprinter in the early going, but Hernandez cannot maintain that throughout 3 rounds. And the Trinaldo fight was the biggest fucking robbery I've ever seen. But we're back in Texas, but Renato has more activity than Trinaldo, which I don't think a bullshit robbery is going to happen again. So give me Moicano as well. And I would love to see if this fight hit the mat. That would be great. But I mean, I saw Moicano go out there and outstrike Cater too. So don't sleep on his stand-up. Now, before we talk about this prelim between Ronnie Lawrence and Leo Mana Martinez, I want to give a big shout out to our sponsor, BetUS. So, guys, if you're looking for a sports book to bet on the Super Bowl, which is fucking going down this Sunday, and UFC 271, BetUS.
Going with the Rams. The Rams.
BetUS.com has been in the game for over 25 years, and they offer you the best odds, more props, and live betting throughout the game. It's easy, safe, and secure, and your #1 betting site. BetUS. Use the code BATTLE125 for an 125% bonus on your first deposit for the Super Bowl and for UFC 271. There's no better book than BetUS.com. So, guys, best odds, more props, live betting throughout the game. BetUS is the only place to play, and deposit today using the code BATTLE125 and get that an exclusive 125% bonus on your first deposit. So you say you're going with the Rams or the Bengals?
The Rams.
I am as well, and I'll tell you what. Look, I love Joe Cool, and
Joe Shiesty,
and he's a fucking beast. But I mean, listen, Matt Stafford. Listen,
he's a dog.
I mean, Matt Stafford reps Georgia. Like I understand. It was Athens. I'm from Atlanta. It's different, but Georgia is Georgia. It's Georgia is Georgia. You represent Georgia, and the Falcons are out. I'm riding with you. So let's take it home, Matt Stafford. And
Athens ain't that far. I mean,
yeah, it's only a 30-minute drive, so something like that. But yeah, BetUS. Use the code BATTLE125 for that 125% deposit match, and let's cash the Super Bowl ticket. Let's cash these bets for UFC 271, and let's get down to business on this next fight. But in the bantamweight division between Ronnie Lawrence, who's 7-1, taking on Leo Mana Martinez, who is 9-2. And currently they got it. Ronnie Lawrence minus 290. The comeback on Leo Mana Martinez is plus 245. All right, so I really want to talk about this fight because I'm very excited about it. So now I don't know if I should call him Mana Martinez or Leo Martinez, because I hear all his teammates call him Leo, and I like that name better. So let's go with Leo Martinez. I think Leo. One thing about this dude, Leo, if you watch his regional fights, man, like he's got that one hitter quitter. Like when he touches dudes, like they go out and they stay out, and that's gonna aid him to a lot of wins here in the UFC. I was actually very surprised that he wasn't able to start Guido Canetti, but I did hear that there were some, circumstances going into that fight, but I wouldn't write off Leo Mana Martinez. I think that he's got a bright future, and he's going to knock a lot of people out in the UFC. The only issue here is that he's running into this buzzsaw named Ronnie Lawrence, and I was kind of alluding to it earlier. The style that these kids like Ronnie Lawrence and like Nick Maximov have, I kind of think that those styles are going to take people super, super far. Because think about this. On his Contender Series fight, this dude goes out there. He attempts 17 takedowns. He lands 12 of them, 12 of 17 for takedowns. He goes out there in his UFC debut. This guy goes 8 for 9 on takedowns. And what that means is, yeah, you can sit here and say, oh, but the guys he fought have bad takedown defense. That's not the point I'm trying to make here. The point I'm trying to make here is like, this is a mental game, and you try to take someone down 4 times. They stuff all 4 of those takedowns. They're probably like huffing and puffing because they used all their effort to stuff those takedowns. And then this dude, Ronnie Lawrence, is still just as fresh, and he's going to go for that 5th, that 6th, that 7th. That style of grappling breaks guys. You watch Nick Maximov, who I understand that people are criticizing him because there was a lot of grappling. So maybe, you want to see people stand and bang. But if we're just talking about strategies to win and lose, that style that kid Maximov has is something you need to look out for. Dudes that can attempt that many. He set the record for most takedowns in middleweight history in his second fight in the UFC against a former All-American. So watch out for Nick Maximov. Watch out for Ronnie Lawrence. These guys have very tough styles to deal with. And I think Mana Martinez has a very bright future. I think he's going to get a lot of highlight reel knockouts in the UFC. But Saturday night, I see Ronnie Lawrence pushing that pace on him. And maybe the first takedown gets stuffed. Maybe the first 5 get stuffed. But Ronnie Lawrence does not get discouraged. And he'll be there for that 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. And he'll keep going over and over till he grinds his opponent down. I am high on this kid. Give me Ronnie Lawrence to defeat the very tough and hard-hitting Leo Mana Martinez.
Yeah, I think Martinez, he's pretty solid. He's got good offense, like technique-wise. I mean, definitely trains. I saw Yanez in his corner. Definitely see some Yanez in there, kind of a watered-down version. But I feel like, yeah, man, I like Ronnie Lawrence. I mean, his work, I just like the work rate. When you got those type of intangibles where you're willing to just go in there and just work harder than him, give better effort. I mean, this guy, his footwork around the cage is ridiculous. I mean, maybe not dangerous with the hands, but the kicks and the just movement, point fighting thing is on point. And I think that Martinez, he waits a lot. That's one thing I noticed. And, these knockouts are nice, but I feel like a lot of these guys in this game, man, are overrated power punchers. And what I'm going to bring up is the guys that he's knocking out on the Fury FC or whatever these shows are, like, you got to actually watch, like, their cans. Just like I'm sure Dennis Bonder knocked out a bunch of guys in the Ukraine, but like,
to his credit, he
did.
Ricky Tercio's got knocked out by.
Oh yeah, Ricky Tercio. I saw that one. That's a legit knockout. But Ricky Tercio is also a guy that takes a lot of damage. But yeah, he definitely knocked him out. Good offense. I just see Ronnie Lawrence. I don't think he's like that crazy of a power puncher though. Like I think in the UFC that number will, the percentage will come down, obviously, as it does for a lot of guys. And I think that Ronnie Lawrence is too dangerous in too many aspects. I mean, some of those takedowns he was sitting on Vince Cachero, I mean, he picked him up in the air for a couple of them. I was like, I was impressed. I was like, maybe Dana was right. He is special, but I don't want to go too far just yet. I do see some holes in the boxing. I mean, he does drop his hands a little bit, but you gotta you got to really crack him to possibly to beat him. Like, I think that this kid is willing to give. I think his best attribute is just the effort and the work rate. I think this kid is willing to work harder, than anybody. Kind of like a country Marab, like just he's from Tennessee, I believe. Like, just where he's willing to work, and I think he's gonna win a decision.
And funny story, I actually had Ronnie Lawrence on Half the Battle, like maybe like 4 years ago, when he was just an up and comer on the regional scene, and he had the mindset back then. So it's pretty cool to see what he's become. And I'm glad you brought up Marab, because that's another example of what I'm talking about. These dudes that, because like you see so many guys that, like, you remember that Cody Brundage, William Knight fight on Contender Series? Like, Cody Brundage, the first takedown didn't work. All right, let's go home and live to fight another day. Whereas these guys like Marab, 13 takedowns. These guys like Ronnie Lawrence, these guys like Nick Maximov. Like, I'm telling you, this style is gonna, you remember how we were talking about the calf kicks not too long ago, which is still a great weapon. This particular style of takedown after takedown after takedown attempt, it's gonna win a lot of fights. So I would start paying attention to fighters like that. It's unfortunate the line's like 3 something, but if you get a good line on one of those guys, like Maximov was plus 160 last week, just pay attention is all I'm saying. Now, next up in the 205-pound division, we got a matchup between William Knight. He's 11-2. He's taking on Maxim Grishin, who is 31-9-2. And currently, they got Maxim Grishin minus 170. The comeback on William Knight's plus 150. So, Shaq, I mean, this is like every William Knight fight where it's like, yeah, his opponent's more technical than him. His opponent's bigger than him. His opponent should be better in every area. But those kind of things don't usually matter with William Knight, because William Knight has that black beast quality about him where, you might take him down, lay on him for a little bit, but he's going to explode back up. He's going to knock you out. I mean, when you saw that Alonzo Menafield fight, anytime he touched Alonzo, I mean, like, Alonzo was like, oh my God, it's like his life flashed before his eyes. And William Knight is as explosive as they come, and he's been getting better, and now he's mixing in takedowns. I like what I see. But look, this Maxime Grishin guy, more experience, bigger. I mean, technically speaking, he's better, but those kinds of things don't always matter when you're talking about William Knight fights, Shaq. So let me know, man. I mean, is William Knight worth the underdog shot here?
I mean, look, it's a good fight, because I don't think Grishin's really like one of those Russians that like you fear. But I think that, man, William Knight has kind of exceeded my expectations. I bet him against Kimura, but after that, I kind of beating Menafield, that was a big win. I think maybe his height disadvantage might honestly be an advantage in some spots, because it's hard to fight a guy that's like that short, and he's like, but he can get in range, man. He can get in range. So yeah, I think William Knight, this might be a good spot for him. Grishin, the only thing I worry about is William Knight raising his chin up in the air and leaning straight back, because Grishin is way taller, and length is a big thing, man. Like, if you have like a lot of length on a guy, and you know how to use it. And so I kind of wanted to see if Maxime did know how to use his length. So I went back and watched him against a glory kickboxer, Dustin Jacoby, and he actually dropped him like twice. Like, Dustin Jacoby, just a quick reactor, and he got back up and kept fighting and outvolumed him a little bit. Maxime had missed weight the previous day, but I mean, he can kickbox. It's just a matter of, is he on or not. I think that if he shows up, I think he will slightly edge out this fight. But if he comes, how he has in the past, and some things missing weight, and kind of having some of these habits, then I do think William Knight will be live. So I honestly think maybe it could be a little shorter, maybe like Grishin minus 150, because I think William Knight's hot right now. I think William Knight's confident right now. I think this is the best William Knight you're going to see. So, I'm gonna take Grishin, but from a betting side of things, I think it's Knight or pass.
I mean, it could so be one of those fights where Grishin just doing his thing, lighting him up,
and then gets caught.
keeping him at range, and then one shot that has that big wobble that just changes the judge's reaction. One big slam takedown where all of a sudden all the work that Grishin did goes out the window. Because yeah, Grishin, like I said, bigger man for the weight class, more technically sound, more experience. I mean, he's the better fighter, but it's just that William Knight brings those intangibles that sometimes can be hard to cap, because it might not look the prettiest, but he's very effective. So, I mean, it's tough. As a dog or pass situation, I'm going to lean that Knight finds one of those moments and takes advantage and comes out here and extends his winning streak. So give me a Willie Knight to get this done. And y'all do me a favor, smash that like button. All 70 plus of you in here, smash that like button for me and hit that subscribe. We truly appreciate it. Now, next up in the flyweight division, we got a matchup between Alex Perez. He's 24-6, and he's taking on Matt Schnell, who is 15-6. And currently, they got Alex Perez minus 400 to come back on Matt Schnell's plus 300. Like, I know, that Perez fought for a title, and he's higher up in the rankings than Schnell. But listen, on Schnell's best day, he's a very skilled guy. I mean, the thing with Schnell, I like everything about his game. Good volume style, the calf kicks, opportunistic chokes, just the chin isn't quite the best, and then sometimes he can be bullied, but on his best day, I think he's pretty solid. I mean, is this truly a minus 400 spot for Perez? Like, is Perez just going to come out here and knock him out in the first round, destroy him, or do we think there's going to be a little pushback here from Matt Schnell?
Yeah, man, I'm kind of off the. I mean, I've kind of been, never was really on, but Schnell just. I don't know, man. I think that he's talented. I've always kind of thought, like, I just don't think things really click for him. He's kind of had a couple little runs, but I just think when the fire's on and that pressure's put on him, he folds every time, man. I mean, he beat Smolka, who else?
In a way,
like, but besides that, I mean, I just think that, these level of guys, like, Pantoja, Bontorin, Perez. Perez might not be. I mean, he's solid, good wrestling power, good chokes, experience. Yeah, I like Perez here, man. Perez ain't losing. I don't see Perez losing to this guy at all. He can wrestle him, he can outbox him. He's better everywhere. Schnell's too hesitant. I don't think he has the chin to open up. I think he wants to open up, but every time he gets going and gets really cracked by one of these guys, he gets wobbled and it deters him, and he makes a big mistake. I think Perez is the better fighter here. He's been out for a while. I know he wants to redeem himself from the Figgy fight. Sometimes Figgy makes these guys look like, a little off, and I think that happened to him. But other than that, who's he lost to? Benavidez, Figgy. Who else? That's it.
In the UFC, that's it.
In the UFC. So, yeah, Perez got this.
I mean, listen, I do expect Perez to kind of just be the more physical guy, kind of dictate the pace, bully him around a little bit. But, there are some things I'm worried about. It's not just the Figueiredo fight. There's been some other fights where Alex Perez has dove into chokes and tapped out the guys that he's probably better than and stuff like that, and made a couple meathead mistakes. Even the Joseph Benavidez fight. I know Joseph, 3-time UFC title challenger, but still, there were moments in that fight that kind of just made me like, I don't know. Like, it was just a head scratcher. But, I mean, Perez should win. Like, don't dive headfirst into a guillotine. Don't get chopped down with calf kicks. And don't sleep on Perez's calf kicks either, man. You saw what he did to Formiga. And, by the way, Formiga's fighting in, I think, LFA this weekend against one of Davison's guys. So it's going to be a little interesting dynamic there. But, yeah, I mean, give me Perez to just kind of bully him around and just be, the more imposing fighter on the night. But I think Schnell is a very skilled guy for sure. Just give me Perez. Now, next up in the flyweight division, we got the retirement fight of Roxanne Modefarri. She's 25-19, and she's taking on Casey O'Neill, who is 8-0. And currently, they got Casey O'Neill minus 435. The comeback on Roxanne Modafferi's plus 335. So, firstly, Roxy, I mean, I've literally been watching you for over 12 years, man. So, like, much respect. You're a pioneer of women's MMA, a legend, like, and just a cool personality, a nice personality. So she's got all my respect. Black belt in jiu-jitsu. And, dude, she's got a knack for the upset, man. I mean, I know you remember when Roxanne Modafferi went to Russia and beat a Shevchenko. I know you remember when she went out there and upset Macy Barber as the biggest underdog of the year. I know you remember when she upset Andrea Lee. I mean, she's got a knack for an upset from time to time. And also, I want to say this. She hasn't been finished in a long long time. I mean, the last time that someone finished her was in 2013. So basically, what I'm trying to say is she's been in there with the entire top 15, and none of them have finished her. So, you know, when you're talking about -4 something on Casey O'Neill, who has only had 3 fights in the UFC, and you look at what these 3 fights in the UFC are. Shanna Dobson, who's got a losing record, Laura Procopio, who was 2 fights and out, and Antonina Shevchenko, who, I mean, I believe her ground game has been
2 fights now.
I believe that Antonina Shevchenko's ground game was highly exposed, 3 fights and out. But
She got cut?
Yeah, she got cut.
Oh, for real?
Procopio, yeah, she's gone. Basically what I'm trying to say is this. I understand it's Roxanne's retirement fight, but I've seen people win in their retirement fight. I saw Mark Munoz win in his retirement fight. I saw Chris Lytle have one of the most epic retirement fights ever, got 2 bonuses and had that amazing speech. So, I mean, a win by Roxanne is not going to surprise me with some kind of vet lesson. And I don't think that O'Neill is going to come out here and finish her, because the way O'Neill finishes people is she takes people's backs, she full mounts people's and pounds them out. And it's like, Roxanne's a black belt. Like, just because she might have 1 foot out the door, that doesn't mean she doesn't know how to defend on the mat. That all of a sudden, what, she can't grapple now? So yeah, I do think O'Neill's probably going to take her down and kind of control parts of the fight, but I don't see her passing the full mount or taking the back and destroying her. I just kind of see her slightly edging it out. Like, I don't think, oh, look, I like O'Neill. I like her aggression. I like what I've seen so far, but we need to pump the brakes, you know, with the people calling her a future top 5. We got to see if that's really the case. And just because she pounded out Antonina, who, you remember, Caitlin Chukagian looked like the pound for pound best fighter on planet Earth against Antonina Shevchenko. So just because that happened doesn't mean it's going to happen to Roxanne. So while I do think that Casey can get some takedowns and, you know, kind of maybe neutralize her at times, I don't think it's going to be a smash or anything like that. So just give me Casey O'Neill via decision.
I don't know, man. I think O'Neill's pretty impressive. I mean, she definitely. I didn't think she was as good as she was thinking she was. But when I watch the tape, I mean, I like the intangibles. I mean, I see a person that, you know, when she came in the first going into the fight with Dobson, I wasn't even sure she was gonna win, so I can't even front. Like, so I think, you know, when the fight got to that phase where it was, you know, heart and will, she took over. Same with Procopio. Procopio had got on top of her, black belt from Nova União, who only lost previous to that was Carol Rosa. And she broke her, man, straight up. Like, just the pace was the pace. She can keep going. I mean, that cardio was on point for sure. I would say that would be kind of like the difference in her and Macy Barber. Or Macy Barber was kind of like a striker, but like we had kind of seen her get honestly hurt with hands, you know, the fight previously against JJ, you know, and we kind of just ignored that. And when Roxanne started boxing her up, it was like, oh shit, what's going on here? But I think O'Neill's just got a different style, more grappling. Like, she pushes that pace. Yeah, sure. I definitely not talking about no top 5. Like, you know, we gotta relax. I don't, like, every week it's like somebody's future this, future that. But like, yeah, I'm gonna go with O'Neill, man. I heard Roxanne this week, and I mean, maybe I'm taking, but like, there was just some things I didn't. The vibe I got was just, you know, loss. It was just, I mean, she said she doesn't want to punch people anymore. She doesn't want to hurt people anymore. She, you know, she doesn't have the same motivation. I mean, she admitted to all of that. So, I mean, she's just coming out here to fight for fun, basically, I feel like. So I honestly wouldn't be shocked if, I mean, yeah, I know she trains, but like just it's different when you're, you know, like, I bet like when she, you know how it is. I mean, she's 38 years old. She's engaged now. She's, you know, she's on a life. I don't know if she's gonna be as intense as Casey O'Neill is. Casey O'Neill really, really wants this. I just think it's gonna be a hungrier dog in the fight, and that's gonna be O'Neill. So I'm gonna go Casey O'Neill to decision. Yeah, Roxanne, she's a tough girl, man. She can take damage, and she is a black belt. Nobody really dominates her on the mat like that. Not even Vivi Arujo, Tyler Santos couldn't finish her. So yeah.
Main event of the prelims in the heavyweight division, we got the former heavyweight champion Andrei Arlovski. He's 32-20, taking on Jared the Mountain Vanderaa, who is 12-6. And currently they got Andrei Arlovski minus 150. The comeback on Jared Vanderaa is plus 130. Listen, you've been better on these Arlovski fights than me, man. I mean, I did cash on Aspinall and Marcin Tybura, and I think one other guy, but also lost on Bozer and Linz and like. But usually you gotta pay a fucking price to fade Arlovski. Here you got dog money. Granted, it's a different level of opponent here. But one thing I want to say stylistically, Arlovski, he's known for his volume game. That's actually somewhat of what Jared Vanderaa is known. He likes to throw a lot of strikes. I mean, he went out there against Tafa and put up some numbers. I know the experience of Arlovski is on a different level, and Vanderaa, this is his first real big fight. I mean, I know he grew up watching Arlovski. You think Vanderaa can pass this test, or is Arlovski about to come out here and make it where he's won 5 of his last 6?
This is the heavyweight division, man. You can be old and you can still be on a run, and I think that's what's gonna happen, man. Jared Vanderaa, look, he's a nice guy, tough guy, can take damage, but he just is slow, plotty. If this fight stays on the feet, Andrei's boxing him up, and he's gonna point fight him up. He beat Carlos Boy Felipe, Bozer, those are 2 better boxers in my opinion, 2 more accurate punchers. I would say Jared Vandeera's best thing would be to try to see if he can get it to the ground. I mean, he does have some good ground and pound. He is big and strong. And Arlovski, might be at that stage in the career. We saw what happened when Aspinall got on top of him. He kind of just tapped right away. So I'm gonna go with Arlovski though, man. I think he's way faster. It's just like, and he can fight for 3 rounds. That's no problem. So, yeah, I know it's crazy to say how old is he? 43-year-old.
But it's heavyweight.
This is heavyweight. So I think that he still has at least a 2 to 3 fight window to especially if he's fighting these younger guys like Bozer and Boy Felipe and now Vanderaa, after this maybe Romanov or something like that. I don't see why not. He can't have success.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta go with Arlovski too. Too much experience, and there's not really a huge takedown threat from Vanderaa. Vanderaa is just kind of slow, plotty. He's durable as hell on the feet, and he'll be there for all 3 rounds. I just think that Arlovski is gonna kind of land the shots, not the shots that wobble him or anything, but just land the more volume of shots, be more frequent with the head strikes as well. Vanderaa likes to go to the legs a lot, and I think that Arlovski comes out here and wins another decision. So that is my pick. All right, well, it's time to get down in the main card, because first up in the lightweight division, we got a matchup between Nasrat Haqparast, who's 13-4, taking on Bobby King Green, who is 28-12. And currently, they got Bobby Green minus 140. The comeback on Nasrat Haqparast is plus 120. So, firstly, just as a man, Nasrat, dude, you have all my respect in the world, because that last fight against Hooker, man, I mean, if you knew what this kid was going through, he lost his mom. He was having visa issues. I mean, jet lag, still had to cut weight for the fight, and he still made the walk. So, I mean, tip my cap, Nasrat. You're a fucking stud and a beast, and you got all my respect in the world. And also, when Nasrat's on his game, he's got a missile of a left hand, knocked out Neto BJJ, still very young. I think the kid's very, very talented. It's just that here with Bobby Green, Bobby is so much more experienced than him. And it seems like when Bobby's been in the UFC over 10 years by this point, that sometimes Bobby, when you've been doing shit for 10 years, sometimes you're motivated, sometimes you're not. I think right now we're looking at a good version of Bobby Green. That fight with Fiziev was an unbelievable fight, and I mean, he went toe-to-toe with Rafael Fiziev, who will go far in the division. Very next fight against Ali Quinta, I mean, who the hell has ever knocked out Ali Quinta in that fashion? So I think he's trending in the right direction. I think he's taking things seriously, but just stylistically, how they match up. Nasrat, I think that the Dober fight might have kind of taken a little bit of confidence away from him. And this is what I mean by that. In that Dober fight, if you watch it, Nasrat's out there smiling. He's taunting. He's being super cocky. And he got caught in that fight. He threw a kick and he got countered with a straight down the pipe. But since that fight, I don't see that same intensity. I kind of see him kind of backing up a little bit, kind of just trying to counter with that big left hand. And I truly think that if you're just kind of backing away, trying to land that one big punch, that's not the style to beat Bobby Green. Like Bobby Green, you got to put up volume to beat a guy like Bobby Green. You got to find a way to stall out Bobby Green. Nasrat ain't going to stall out anything. Nasrat's actually the guy who's like, well, if he wants to hold me down, it'll be a boring fight. And it's like, oh, so you're worried about his wrestling then. Okay, that's good to know because Bobby can take people down too. I just think Bobby's got way too much volume for him. Look, we just got to worry about that nuke of a left hand from Nasrat. You know, as long as Bobby doesn't get knocked out, Bobby's got way too much volume for him. And yeah, we do have to worry about those Texas judges, but I just don't think that Nasrat throws enough volume to make it an issue. And actually, the numbers say on UFC stats that he does throw a lot of volume, but I think a lot of that was from some of these older fights against people that are just not on that level, man. Like, I respect the Alex Munoz kid that he went out there and fought, but Alex Munoz is 6-1, guys. I respect Rafa Garcia. Rafa Garcia is 1-2 in the UFC. Like, so really, the Joaquin Silva fight, that's his claim to fame right there. That's an amazing knockout, but Joaquin Silva is a slow, plodding fighter. Bobby Green is hard to hit. He's very crafty. He can switch stances. He's as experienced as they get, and he's well-rounded everywhere the fight goes. And as a favorite, he's got a winning record as a favorite. The only time he's ever lost as a favorite is when he was like minus 300 against Thiago Moises, and that was a very, very close fight. Aside from that, the fights he loses, he's expected to lose. And Nasrat doesn't have the best history as the dog either. I mean, I know you remember that plus 350 against Marcin that I was very pissed off when that didn't cash. But that's neither here nor there. I just think Bobby Green's going to put up the numbers on Nasrat, kind of back him up a little bit. Like I said, stack up the volume and mix in a takedown or two, give him that MMA vet lesson, and Nasrat will be back. He's just a kid. He's got a bright future. I like him a lot. Give me Bobby Green, and I bet him at minus 135.
Yeah, I think that Nasrat is kind of just in a spot right now where he's a young kid and he's fighting experienced grown men, man. I mean, he's fighting Drew Dober, a guy that's been around the block, very experienced. And I think that did break his confidence a little bit. But honestly, his style is honestly based off that left hand. Neto BJJ is, like you said, his claim to fame at 155, that knockout. You got to look at the fight that Neto BJJ was coming off of. Did you see Neto BJJ's last fight? It's clear that, hey,
he gets hit more than Bobby.
The Jared Gordon fight took everything out of him. I mean, that was one of the craziest fights I've ever seen. If you guys never seen it, Joaquin Silva versus Jared Gordon. Joaquin Silva actually just tapped out Neil Magny and BJJ, actually. So.
And Neil has the audacity to call out Hamza.
Yeah. But, yeah, I think that Bobby is just the better fighter, man. I think that Nasrat's just young, and he's in a spot right now that he's not ready for. I think that Bobby Green is a top 20, 25 type of guy that can fight. Like, he just fought Rafael Fiziev in a very good fight. If that fight's 5 rounds, who knows what happens. But it wasn't, so Fiziev was able to get the win there. But I think Nasrat, all he has is the left hand, and he's not being aggressive with the left hand as of late. As of in his interview, I kind of sense a little immaturity a little bit. I see Bobby Green is at a stage in his career right now where he's trying to get money. We're trying to make the last little run here. I think that Nasrat just is not ready for this spot. I think that after this fight, he's going to have to take a step back a little bit. You look at his fight against Rafa Garcia, that was his opportunity to come out and have a showcase performance against a guy that's going to stand in the pocket and be there for the left hand. And he was kind of backing away, and he was kind of shying away in spurts like that. I wasn't impressed. But Bobby Green, he comes to fight every single fight. He's rarely ever dominated. If you're going to beat Bobby Green, it's going to be usually by controversial split decision. The only person that ever dominated him is Poirier. That's it, right? In the UFC.
The UFC lightweight KO king.
Exactly. So I think Bobby Green is going to come out here and show everyone that he is that top 15, top 20 type guy, man. So, yeah, I'm going Bobby Green.
Everybody do us a huge favor. Smash that like button and hit that subscribe button. Now let's talk about this bantamweight matchup between Kyler Phillips, who's 9-2, taking on Marcelo, the Argentinian Pitbull Rojo, who is 16-7. And currently they got Kyler Phillips minus 430. The comeback on Marcelo Rojo is plus 330. So here's the thing. Kyler Phillips in the early going, man. I mean, this guy is dynamic. This guy is explosive. He's got a wide arsenal of strikes to his disposal. He's got a black belt in BJJ. I mean, for like 1.5 rounds, like he could be a top 5 guy. This guy is super talented. The issue with his style requires so much explosion, so much fast twitch that as a result, he is going to slow down as fights carry on. And this kid, Marcelo Rojo, I mean, when you talk about those Latin wars, this guy is known for those Latin wars, man. This guy, he's a dog, man. He's one of those guys that, on his regional scene, he was taking fights.
Castaneda.
Yeah, he was taking fights up like 2 weight classes, like on a day notice. Like, he's that guy, and there's something different about those Latin wars, man. So, like, yeah, I do think Kyler Phillips is going to be the much more dynamic guy in the early going. But if Marcelo can fight tough, get this in the deep waters, like Kyler has slowed down, not just his last fight, but the fight prior to that as well, man. Look, Kyler should be favored here. He's definitely the better fighter, the faster fighter. But if Marcelo can somehow drag him in one of these Latin wars, not saying that Marcelo will win, but what I do think is that Marcelo is going to gain a lot of people's respect. Like, I think it's going to be a Kyler Phillips decision, but I think it's going to be one of those where Marcelo fights his fucking heart out, fights his balls out, and everyone becomes a Marcelo Rojo fan. They're like, man, I can't wait to see him fight again. But Kyler Phillips gets the decision win, but probably doesn't look minus 400.
Yeah, that was a letdown for Kyler, his last fight against Halion. I was actually on Halion, and
sharp bet, Shaq.
he floored him in the first round, and same like the Song fight, kind of gas himself out. But look, he's clearly got talent. He's beaten guys like Song Yadong before. Even the Paiva performance wasn't the worst, but he does have a history of kind of pulling stunts in these wars. He fought Victor Henry. Victor Henry beat Ione Barcelos, and I heard there was a similar situation going on there as well. So, look, there is evidence that happens. And look, I actually watched the Rojo fight, man. That fight with Jourdain was a good fight, man. I mean, he took it to him. Like, Jourdain, he always lets these guys take it to him early, and then the third round, he usually, you saw what he did the third round, the last one. His third rounds are some of the best in the featherweight division, in my opinion. I don't know why he waits so long to get going, but anyways, man, yeah, I think Rojo's a dog, man. I think and that was with a short camp, that Jourdain fight. I mean, that was like a last minute fill-in. So, I mean, if he's got a full camp, I think it's a dog or pass situation. Look, Kyler Phillips has got to be hungry after that big letdown. I mean, he was on track for an Asuncao fight at one point. I mean, imagine what he could have done there.
All these guys keep fucking up with that Asuncao fight. Look at Ione.
He had an Asuncao fight in his hands, and he ended up fighting Halion. But hey, let's see if he can finish Marcelo. I think he'll scrape it out, but I think it's going to be an exciting, war, like where Kyler's trying to do like flips and Marcelo's just going forward and, taking damage, but, still getting his offense off. So, yeah, I think Kyler Phillips will get a win in a very entertaining fight, kind of similar to like Ocho and Julian, the other day.
Featured bout in the middleweight division. We got number 4, Jared Cannonier. He's 14-5, taking on number 3, Derek Brunson, who's 23-7. Actually, and these are Tapology rankings. I think in the UFC rankings, Cannonier is actually ahead of Brunson. That's neither here nor there. Currently, they got Jared Cannonier minus, just depends where you look, minus 152. The comeback on Derek Brunson is plus 135. So, I mean, one part of the dynamic is the wrestling of Brunson versus the devastating knockout power of the Killer Gorilla. And then there's also the narrative about Brunson saying he's only got 2 fights left, and Cannonier saying, I want a fucking title shot, man. So interesting fight. I mean, listen, dude, like, firstly, do you think that Jared Cannonier has his takedown defense improved? I mean, I think it has, personally. But has it improved to the point where, like, we can keep this standing? We're not gassed from trying to stuff all those attempts to where now Derek can run and chin straight up in the air and blitz. Like, what are we looking at here?
Yeah, man, I think I think Jared Cannonier's takedown defense has gotten a lot better. I think his whole overall game has his striking as well. I think he lost that fight to Whittaker, and I don't think Jared Cannonier is ever gonna win the belt. I don't ever think he might. I think his career goal right now is to at least fight for the title. You know what I'm saying? I think that Derek Brunson, look, this is not Golden Boy Shabazian. Golden Boy Shabazian had fought basically no, like he knocked out Brad Tavares, and I get it, but Brad Tavares was coming off like surgeries and
Izzy
a
fight.
2 year layoff. Izzy fight, like it was bad. Like that was good timing. He beat. Did you see the Darren Stewart fight with Shabazian back in the day? I mean, you saw what happened in that fight. So like, and then he beat Darren Till, who I hear had an injury going into the fight. But even injured or not, like Darren Till, what's his record in his last 4 or 5 fights exactly? Who else did he beat? Ian Heinisch, Elias Theodoro. What was the last one?
Till.
Yeah, that was his last fight. But I think that yeah, I mean Kevin Holland. Yeah, he beat Kevin Holland by decision as well, man. I just think Jared Cannonier is gonna come out here, stuff the takedowns. I think he's gonna move forward, and I feel like once he puts pressure on Brunson, I think Brunson will make a mistake, man. I think that these guys that he's been fighting haven't been coming in prepared. Darren Till, like I said, is not. I mean, Jorge Masvidal changed his life, man. And I just think that Jared Cannonier is the type of guy that will put that pressure. We've seen him do it in the past against Jack Hermanson. I don't think the Rob Whittaker fight was a bad showing at all. I just think Robert Whittaker was the better fighter. But yeah, I think he's gonna knock Brunson out. I think that Brunson's at the best stage in his career, but I think that the opponents, you got to weigh that in a little bit. Like I don't think those dudes are ready.
Yeah, the whole blonde Brunson narrative, guys. Just because someone dyed their hair doesn't mean that they're a new fighter. I know. We like to have fun with
Kevin
that.
Holland can't stuff a like he knocked out Jacare and everything was like, guys, Jacare's done.
Jacare knocked out Brunson twice. But anyways, listen. As far as this matchup is concerned, I mean, I definitely think that the Killer Gorilla is much more devastating standing. I mean, even though don't sleep on Brunson, like because we're talking about the top 5 right now. So I don't want it to sound like I'm disrespecting Brunson. Like if you're not in the top 5, top 7, top 8, Brunson is going to absolutely style on you. He's going to give you that vet lesson. He might even knock you out. Like Brunson is explosive. He's destructive. Like he's a great fighter. It's just now that we're moving up to the upper echelon, some of those things aren't going to work as well, man. Like you're not just going to be able to blitz in with that chin straight up in the air. And I know he's gotten better about that. He's a little bit more patient these days, but that's still how he strikes. And a guy like Jared Cannonier can absolutely counter him with something big and finish the fight. And then I do think the takedown defense has gotten a lot better. And even in that Till fight, Till was rocking him. And then Till goes for a fucking guillotine. Like these are Till's, stealing taxi cabs and going on coke binges. Like I don't think that Jared Cannonier is doing stuff like that, man. I think that Cannonier, the only thing I don't like is the price. That's the only thing I'm not crazy about is the price. So that's why I'm probably going to pass on this fight. But I do think that Cannonier stuffs these takedowns and knocks out Derek Brunson. I mean, we can't forget that Brunson's been knocked out like 5 times, 6 times. So just because it hasn't happened because he's been fighting guys like Elias Theodoro, who couldn't punch through a wet paper bag, Cannonier was knocking guys out at heavyweight. So give me Cannonier to come out here and defeat Derek Brunson and end this whole blonde Brunson shit. Now, before we talk about the co-main event between Derrick the Black Beast Lewis and Tai Tuivasa, which is going to be absolute mayhem, got to give a huge shout out to our sponsor PrizePicks, which is the daily fantasy sports partner of Half the Battle. So guys, PrizePicks is the easiest and simplest way to make money on daily fantasy sports. All Half the Battle listeners will receive an 100% instant deposit match up to $100 using the code BATTLE at PrizePicks. Download the app or go to prizepicks.com. And I want to say this last week. So I tell you all some of the spots to take advantage of. Listen to this one. Last week, the over-under on significant strikes for Phil Rowe was 47. So you mean to tell me that Jason Witt can eat 47 strikes from anyone, let alone Phil Rowe? Like the first combination Phil Rowe threw, he knocked him out. So yeah, when you see spots like that, you fucking hammer. And this weekend, there's some grapplers and they start, inflating their over-unders. Take advantage. And then Super Bowl's coming up. Make sure you're feeling Joe Cool. You're feeling Matt Stafford. You got a hot take on that. Combine the sports and do your thing, man. And another thing I love about them is that, you put up a lineup of like 3 or 4 players, right? You don't have to go 4 for 4. It's not like a parlay where you got to hit all legs and if only one loses, you lose. Like you can go 3 for 4 and cash out. So Prize Picks is the way to play. And guys, they have a 4.8 star rating in the App Store with great reviews. So just make sure y'all go to prizepicks.com, download the PrizePicks app, use the code BATTLE, and let's take advantage, guys. Get that 100% deposit match. And again, like I said, last week, over under 47 significant strikes on Phil Rowe. Like you're telling me, I don't think Jason Witt can eat 4 strikes from Phil Rowe, let alone 47. So when you see spots like that, hammer, hammer, hammer. Check out Prize Picks and use our code BATTLE for that deposit match. And thank you, Prize Picks, for sponsoring the show. Co-main event of the evening in the heavyweight division. We got a matchup between Derrick the Black Beast Lewis, not the heavyweight KO King, the UFC KO King. He's 26-8, taking on Tai Tuivasa, who was 14-3. And currently, they got Derrick Lewis minus 180. The comeback on Tai Tuivasa is plus 158. It was actually the first fight I watched to kind of do a little prep for this. It was actually the Mark Hunt and Derrick Lewis fight because Mark Hunt does have a similar style to Tai Tuivasa. I know that Tai Tuivasa is heavily influenced by Mark Hunt, and I think that he'd try to implement a similar game plan. The only thing is that that's not the Derrick Lewis we're going to see here Saturday night. Reason being, he was actually dealing with some like he was having back spasms mid-fight, and you could tell that his movement was hindered and that he was backing up and he's bending over, and like you could tell he was in a lot of pain. And I'm not making excuses or taking anything away from Mark Hunt's brilliant performance. And I'm not taking away from the fact that, Tai Tuivasa can take some elements of that fight and use it here. That's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is don't expect that Derrick Lewis that was having back spasms, backing up, just looking like he was hurting the entire time. And even that guy was throwing bombs. So these two are going to stand and bang until one man falls. I do not expect a heavyweight staring contest. I know they're going to respect each other's power, but I think that they're going to come out here and bang. Tai Tuivasa, be smart, kind of chop him down with some leg kicks a little bit. And I love those leaping left hooks by Tai Tuivasa and then his clinch break elbows. It's basically like Mark Hunt 2.0. And then Derrick Lewis, he might not do anything for a little bit, but once the Black Beast does the Black Beast blitz, bodies tend to hit the floor. He only had to go at Chris Dawkins one time to put him unconscious and all the other people he's knocked out over the years. And don't sleep on the athleticism of Lewis, too. I know that he looks like a heavier set guy, but I've seen this guy throwing flying kicks. I've seen him throwing flying knees. And when you take him down to the mat, he's very good at surviving bad spots and exploding back up to the feet. So, dude, I can see why this would be a dogger pass situation. 2 big hitters, and you get like a plus 160, plus 170 on Tai Tuivasa. I can see why you'd be tempted. And Derrick, not always, but the last time in Houston didn't go his way. Now there was way more time. There was way more pressure for the title fight, but he also remember when he knocked out Marcin Tybura in Houston too. So he's had success in Texas before. I'm gonna go with Derrick Lewis to win this fight, but I'm not going to talk anyone off a shot of Tai Tuivasa because I think right now he's hitting his stride. I think he's had the most confidence he's ever had in his entire career. He's already been through his ups and downs. He's paid his dues, and I think now we're seeing the best version of him. So if he comes out here and wins and it's his time, I fully accept it, and I appreciate it, and I respect him. But my pick is going to be Derrick Lewis to win this fight.
Derrick's got to redeem himself in Houston. I actually bet on him one time against Ilir Latifi in Houston, and the fight got a little hairy, man. And look, it's a lot of pressure when you're fighting in that hometown like that. Everyone's going to be screaming for you, and there's really not going to be much pressure in that sense on Tai Tuivasa, man. So look, I think that Tuivasa honestly is a more talented kickboxer at range. I think that he can land the low kicks like you were saying. I think that he can even land left hooks and straight punches on them as well. I just think that what Derrick Lewis is so good at is running away with that momentum, man. Like once he gets that one little moment, he'll take that and run with it, and he won't give the guys that room to come back. He'll just even in some of his 3 round fights, like when he fought Blagoy Ivanov, and who has a win over Tai Tuivasa. I mean, like just every time he got into a bad spot, he'd sit there, he'd do nothing, and then once he gets up, man, he's gonna steal the round back. He did that against Alir Latifi with those big flurries, and guys usually stay away from Derrick Lewis and big in those big flurry punches against the fence. So, yeah, I mean, look, I think Derrick, I think it's just like hard to imagine him losing in this in Houston, like again after the way the Surreal Gone fight went, but man, that price is playing with fire, man. It's like, ooh, I don't know. Like, I kind of like Tuivasa at that line. So, man, I'm gonna take Tuivasa in the upset, man. Why not? Like, I think Tuivasa can come out here and shock the Houston crowd. But if Derrick Lewis wins, man, I think that'll make everyone happy.
I mean, listen, Lewis wins, we'll be happy. Tuivasa wins, he does a shoey, we'll be happy.
Like, dude, I love when he does those shoeys, man. Like, it's fucking crazy.
Like, I'm gonna be happy if either guy wins, but I'll be sad for the guy that loses because I love both these guys, man. I mean,
now they're talking about cuppies and shit.
These guys are fun. Main event of the evening for the middleweight championship. We got the undisputed champ, Israel Adesanya. He's 21-1. What a record, my man. Taking on Robert the Reaper Whittaker, the former champion, who's 23-5. And currently, they got Izzy Adesanya minus 270. The comeback on Robert Whittaker is plus 230. So, obviously, the line's definitely wider than the first time they fought. I mean, granted, what happened the first time they fought, Izzy knocked him out twice. But I got to say, man, I mean, Whittaker, he's picked himself back up, put up a 3-fight win streak. And I think that each performance has been increasingly more impressive. Look, the Darren Till fight definitely won that fight, but, he did get dropped in that fight, showed he could overcome some adversity, and then schooled Till the rest of the fight. The Cannonier fight, I mean, was a pillar to post ass whooping until the very last round when Cannonier did wobble Whittaker, but aside from that, domination. And then the Gastelum fight, I mean, that was a masterclass of MMA. So Whittaker's back. I mean, we're back to seeing the best Whittaker we've ever seen. It's just, does Izzy have his number, not just skills wise, but mentally too? I know there's a big mental aspect to this game. And then with Izzy, like, I don't see any signs of decline with him. The only thing you got to worry about with these long reigning champs, because now he is a long reigning champ, is at what point, do they
don't want to do it anymore.
At what point is like, man, I'm sick of this shit. Like, the pressure of being the champ is too much. Now, he doesn't strike me as that guy, actually. I still think that he's trying to seek new heights. And people do criticize his last performance against Vettori. I don't. I thought it was a clinic. But they're saying that, it's because, when you're used to seeing what he did to like Paulo Costa or what he did to Whittaker, and then the next fight goes 5 rounds, like,
Sorry, it's not getting finished.
People love to nitpick everything, but I still think Israel looked amazing. I mean, look, I just think that as great as Robert Whittaker is, and let's see what adjustments he can make. Maybe start kicking the leg. Maybe he was reckless the first time. Be a little bit more patient this time. Time when he's going to leap in with that big left hook. He disguises his high kick really well. It's just the issue with Whittaker is that he does fight with those hands down, and that's what I'm worried about here against a guy like Izzy. Now, Izzy does have a bit of that tall man's defense, and sometimes when he backs up in the cage, there's some scary moments where you feel like, man, he could get clipped here. So, yeah, I mean, there's a chance that it could go either way, but usually, long reigning champions that lost their belts, even though Whittaker only did have like one defense, I still consider him one of the best champs in middleweight history. They don't usually come back to win their belts. Now, I know we could talk about Davison and Brandon. The thing is, we had a reference point of them. The first time they fought, I scored it 4-1 for Davison. The next fight was a wipeout. So at least we had a reference point going into the third fight that, hey, like, Davison can beat this guy. Like, we know he can. Whereas here, we don't have that reference point. Now, granted, the line reflects that, right? It was only plus 160 for Davison. It's plus, 230 or whatever for Robert Whittaker. So we get that. And every fight is different. So I don't just think he's going to come out here and knock him out twice like he did the first time. And I think Robert's going to be more measured. I still have to go with Izzy Adesanya here. I get it. You see a number like that on Whittaker and you're tempted against any man on planet Earth in the middleweight division, go for it. And actually, I'm undefeated betting on Whittaker fights. I mean, on his come up, this guy was money. Plus 135 versus Brad Tavares, plus 205 versus Jacare, plus 125 versus Derek Brunson. I mean, dude, Whittaker, plus 120 against Uriah Hall. Whittaker was money on his come up, and even on his championship reign. It's just, I just think that Izzy has his number. So I'm going and still here.
Yeah, I think Adesanya has proven himself to be the best 185er. Whittaker, on this 3-fight winning streak, I thought he did a good job and I thought he looked good, but at no point during that 3-fight win streak did he ever show anything that that kind of led to believe that he could, all those fights at some point were in range for the other guy. All the other guys besides Gaslam, my bad, but the other two at least, he got tested a little bit, and I just think that Adesanya, man, every time we try to go against this guy, he just comes out here and he puts him down. I think he's just proven. I just think he is that guy, man. I think he's just, it is what it is, man. He's just that guy. Look, beating Vettori the way he did the last time, just making him look that silly. And I know Marvin kind of, Izzy gets in these guys' heads, kind of like how he did with Rob the first time. I mean, a lot of people don't know, but Rob was making memes. He was, talking smack. Rob Whittaker really isn't that type of guy, but Adesanya had got under his skin about something, and Adesanya is very good at that, man. So I don't think it's a big factor in this one, but just from a striking standpoint, Whittaker's always been the type of guy to drop his left hand a little bit. Adesanya as well, but it's just when you play that game with Adesanya, one of those, even a jab, one of those jabs can change the course of the fight. A straight punch, it just seems like he's too accurate, too precise, and Whittaker definitely has is a good home run hitter, type of style, but it's just, he tried that last time and he got countered up. And I don't see the takedown. If he's really thinking the takedown, I don't see that being, I don't want to say smart, but I just see that wasting energy. I don't think that's a good route to go. I think he's got to live and die by the striking and see how it goes. But I'm not going with Adesanya against Adesanya, man. It's a lot of pressure he's got on him. But I mean, you signed that new deal. I mean, it's almost bro, you got to win this. It's you can't lose. So yeah, I'm going Adesanya here to probably win a decision this time.
If Whittaker wins, imagine how big the trilogy
would be crazy. Yeah. It might happen, man. They'd have to do it back in New Zealand, though.
It'd be like some boxing shit if Izzy loses this fight.
Yeah, I mean, look, anything can happen in there, man.
Anything. Hey, y'all. So before we talk about the fight to watch and the fighter to watch, do us a favor. There's 85 of y'all in here. Smash that like button for us. Hit that subscribe button. Now, Shaq, what is the fight to watch for UFC 271?
My fight to watch is gonna be Jared Cannonier versus Derek Brunson. I mean, who's gonna get this next title shot? We got Strickland in there. You got guys like Marvin and Paulo need a fight. So I think whoever wins this fight is either gonna get the title shot or one fight away for sure. So and Derek Brunson said he's only got 2 fights left, so it's got to be this one in the title shot. So I'm excited to see what happens. So.
My fight to watch is on the main card between Kyler Phillips and Marcelo Rojo. I have a feeling okay, so Kyler Phillips can come out here, be explosive, possibly get an early finish, or Marcelo Rojo can drag him into one of those Latin blood and guts wars, and it could be the fight of the night. And I just think no matter what happens, this is one of those fights where you guys are going to be like, holy shit. So Rojo versus Kyler Phillips, that's my fight to watch, and I'm very curious to see if Phillips covers that minus 430 price tag. Now, Shaq, who is your fighter to watch for UFC 271?
My fighter to watch is gonna be a guy on the prelims, Ronnie Lawrence. When Dana White says they're special, man, I'm tuning into your fights because I want to see it. And Ronnie Lawrence, I mean, look, I want to see how he handles this type of guy, these type of guys that he's fighting this weekend. got a reputation of a power puncher. Like, I want to see how you handle these guys, because if you're special, then there's a certain level I'm expecting. So I'm excited to see his fight. It's been a while since he last fought. I know he had the botch weight cut when he was supposed to fight Trevor Jones. So yeah.
Yeah, and for me, my fighter to watch is Renato Moicano, man. I mean, look, he moved up to 155 pounds. He said the cuts to 45 were just taking everything out of him. And if you put it in perspective, the guy made it to top 5 in the world with those brutal weight cuts. Now he's coming up to 155 pounds. He's already 2-1 in the weight class, the only loss being to a top 10 guy in Rafael Fiziev. If he can come out here and beat a guy in Alexander Hernandez, who, I mean, like, we might not be the highest on him, but like he still has like a bit of a name because of what he did early on in his UFC run. And if Renato has the kind of impressive performance that I think he's capable of having, then I think he's going to get another big fight next. And I just want to see how he handles this, man. I mean, I want to know, are we going to get this to the mat right away? Because I think Renato takes his back, it could be over, or are they going to stand and bang, which gives Alex the chance to get that early KO? But don't sleep on Renato stand up either. So Renato Moicano is my fighter to watch. I'm very curious to see how he approaches this performance. Well, Shaq, we did it. It's going down this Saturday night live in Houston, Texas at the Toyota Center. We got the middleweight championship on the line, Izzy versus Whittaker 2. Co-main event, the heavyweights, Derrick the Black Beast Lewis versus Tuivasa. Hell of a card. Thank you guys all very much for being here with us. Follow Shaq at MMA Genius 05. Follow me at Best Fight Picks on Twitter. Subscribe to Half the Battle on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, Stitcher, Spotify. All the places where we are available. We'll be back next week for the next card. Oh, and also, so on Tuesday nights around 9 o'clock, I've been doing Dan's Tuesday Night Contender, talking to different UFC fighters. Had Bilal Muhammad, Jamal Hill, and Billy Q on so far. And what's different is that a lot of people are doing interviews, which is great, and I believe that everybody should. And there's only a few people that do live interviews, but this is the only show that does a live interview with fan interaction. So if you guys want to talk to your favorite UFC fighters, come through Tuesday night on Half the Battle, and we got you, man. And then also, shout out to our sponsors, Prize Picks. Use that code BATTLE for an 100% deposit match up to $100. Take advantage of these spots that they're overlooking. And if you're looking to bet on the Super Bowl and UFC 271, no better place than BetUS. Use the code BATTLE125 for an 125% bonus on your first deposit. So thank you guys so much. We'll be back next week. Smash that like button, hit that subscribe, and until the next time, let's cash these bets.